Hello, this is Nicholas Leifker, and welcome to Management 409. I wanted to go over a few things with regard to the Littlefield simulation, so this is the first of several videos that I will be recording with regard to that. First, the timeline with regard to the spring 2016 semester. First, register your team by Monday the 11th, in other words, 1 week from, 1 week after the conceptual portion of the exam. Also, complete your pre-simulation report by, I should read Wednesday, April 13th, by 11:59 p.m. I've moved it up a date to give you a little more time. I'm a little concerned about that, and I'll explain why. But I think you'll understand why I moved it up to Wednesday, April 13th after a bit. Third, the first 50 days are available for review at this moment at that particular website, and I'll be looking at that particular website in another video. The team name is user, password user1. The simulation will start Tuesday, April 12th at 3 o'clock p.m. So at 3 o'clock, I will start the simulation. And it will continue for 1 week through Tuesday, April 19th. The after action simulation report and all other materials will be due to Blackboard by 11:59 p.m. on Monday, April 25th. In other words, first day of finals week. Now, what I expect? Well, I expect several things. First, there's the simulation performance, and that I will grade that automatically through your presentation and simulation. How I will grade that is this. If your team goes bankrupt, in other words, $0, you get a 50. Whatever I get as a score, that will be 100. Keep in mind, any team that does better than me on the simulation, yes, I will be participating in the simulation. Any team that does better than me, and it does happen sometimes, that particular team gets 100 for all three main parts of the simulation. The simulation performance, and also the pre-action simulation report and post-action simulation report. Now, the pre-action simulation report. It is not a good idea to go into this simulation without planning. The pre-action simulation report is designed to make you plan, to force you to plan. So I want you to know in advance, roughly, when you are going to purchase more machines for this process. I want you to know how many kits you're going to order with each batch that you order. So it's important that you plan these things. That is what the pre-action simulation report is all about. Now, the post-action simulation report, a good way of thinking about this is that after you've participated in the simulation, you've seen what worked and what didn't, this is the chance to make amends. This is the chance to analyze what your team did, what it did well, what it didn't do so well. And perhaps, and this is if you do the post-action simulation report well, what you should have done better with analysis as to why. And then, well, I do want a statement of work. I want to know what each member of your group contributed to this particular simulation. Now, individual deliverables. Each individual must sign up with their team for the simulation for that person to receive credit. And also, I do want you to fill out a peer evaluation. In other words, you will be grading your teammates on their performance. And if you want an idea as to how that will affect your grade, well, there's a nice little equation at the beginning of the course that reflects that. In other words, be a good teammate, because a decent portion of your grade will be reflected based on what your teammates think of your performance. So, in the simulation takes 268 simulated days. So, the first 50 days are already run, and that historical data is available. In fact, if you go back to this website and log in, ltresponsive.net, and the SGFC3 trial, this gives you the first 50 days. So you already have that data. You have 50 days of demand data that you can use. From day 50 to day 218, your team takes this process over, and you make decisions regarding capacity, scheduling, purchasing. So there's decisions that need to be made. This is a process that you need to manage. From day 218, the system takes over again and runs for another 50 days. So, in a simulation environment, 1 hour of real time corresponds to 1 day of simulation time. In other words, 1 hour of real time passes, 1 day of simulation time passes. Now, what do I expect with the simulation report? First, it should be in the form of a memo addressed from the members of your team to me. The maximum length I will allow is 4 pages, single-sided, double-spaced, times the Roman 12 font. Well, a good way of thinking about this, make it in a font that is professional and of a sufficient size. In other words, do not produce a product that you would be ashamed to give this to a boss, to a manager, okay? So I expect professional writing, and I will explain that in a little more detail as we go forward. That said, 4 pages probably shouldn't be needed. 3 should be sufficient. In other words, what I expect is preciseness and conciseness. So be precise in what you're saying and be concise in what you're saying. Now, the pre-action report is your plan. What does your group intend to do during the simulation? In other words, how many machines do you intend to buy for this process? At what times do you expect to purchase these machines for the process? And I will go into what is expected in just a minute. The post-action report is a summary of the actions that your team took during the report, as well as an analysis, maybe what your team should have done. So, what do I expect in these reports? Well, here's some questions. And I recommend that you look at these questions very carefully. So, you should be able to know the answers to the first 6 questions here listed, these first 6 bullet points, before the simulation starts, okay? So first question, how did you forecast future demand? Okay? So how did you forecast future demand? How did you forecast from day 50? What demand would be going forward? What would it be at day 120? What would it be at day 218? You need to have an answer for that. Second, how did you translate your forecast for future demand into machine requirements? So, you need to take that forecast that you just came up with, and you need to take a look at some other things, such as the utilization that was going on each step, such as the actual throughput rate of the process, and use that to determine, what is the designed throughput rate for one machine at each step. And from that, if one machine can do a certain amount of items per day, how many items can 2 machines complete in a day? How many items can 3 machines complete in a day? You see what I'm getting at? Okay. So, the third question. How did you decide when to purchase these machines? So, how did you know from day 50 when you would purchase this additional equipment? In other words, when does it become necessary to purchase a second machine, or a third machine, or a fourth machine for each step? You should be able to answer these questions. Fourth, how did you decide how many sets of kits to order with each batch? Well, this is inventory management, right? And not only that, but it looks like we're ordering, and it looks like we're trying to find an optimal order amount. When we're ordering, and we're not going to be throwing these kits away, whatever we use, we're going to use. So, which mathematical model should we use in that case? Then, for the fifth problem, how did you decide the reorder point for the kits? So, good old reorder point and safety stock problem. And then the sixth one, how did you decide between the contracts that are available? There's 3 contracts that you can use with your supplier. And the way these work is this. If you quote a faster delivery time, then you get more money for each item that you complete. If you want to have the slow process, and the slow process basically it guarantees a 7-day delivery time. And if you don't deliver in 14 days, you get nothing. And you get $750 per batch for that. On the other hand, if you choose the fast contract, where you promise a half-day delivery, 0.5 days delivery, and if you don't deliver within 1 day, you get nothing for that particular job. Well, you get $1,250 per kit, per set of kits, if you will. So the question is, which set of kits should you choose? Or which contract should you choose in that case? Now the last two, these are more specialized situations that you see with the post-simulation write-up. Did you sell any machines? If so, how did you decide when and how many? And what this queue sequencing rule is, sometimes you may get in trouble with regard to your process. Because the way the process works is that, well, it goes into sort of a loop. So it goes through the first step, then the second step, then goes through the third step, and then back through the second step. So the first step is a board stuffing step where you're taking satellite receivers and putting a new circuit board in. The second step is a testing step. The third step is a tuning step where you make small adjustments. And then it goes back through that testing step one more time before being released to the customer. So the question is, do you keep it at first come, first serve, which is the default? Or is it a case where you might want to clear some material out of a part of your process and give priority to, say, the kits coming in from the board stuffing step or the kits coming in from the tuning step? That's something that you may have to face. So if you had to change the queue sequencing rule, that is also something to address. So what are the deliverables? What do I expect with the deliverables? First, I want a summary of your team's decisions and actions. So what actions should your team take in the pre-simulation report? Or what actions did your team take in the post-simulation report? Explain why you took those actions. So you should have reasoning with why you did what you did. In the post-simulation report, explain whether or not that was the right decision. Now, I need to explain what I am looking for and what I am not looking for. I want analysis. I want mathematics. I want numbers. I want you to tell me how many. I want you to tell me a number, when. So when it comes to this analysis, when it comes to answering these questions that you have, you should be able to tell me, well, for step 1, the board stuffing step, we plan to purchase, say, 8 machines, something along those lines. For the second step, the testing step, we plan to purchase 6 machines. Or the third, on the tuning step, we plan to purchase 5 machines. You should be able to tell me what that number is. More to the point, you should give me a mathematical calculation as to why. Okay? In other words, you need to do the math. Okay? To say, well, we should buy more machines. Well, anybody could tell you that. But it's a good manager that uses their math to tell you how many, how much, when. Okay? So tell me how many, how much, when. So I want the analysis. Okay? So you show analysis to justify your conclusions. Vague words will get you nowhere. Vague words do not impress me. Numbers and formulas, on the other hand, provide a clarity to your work. Second, the overall grade with regard to this particular simulation. It's partially from performance, but for the most part, you see that it's based on the quality of your reports. The simulation portion, that's 1/3 of your grade with regard to this simulation. The other 2 portions, the pre-simulation report and post-simulation report, well, that to me is more important because that analysis, that tells me what you've learned so far this year. That tells me if you've absorbed the lessons this year or not. Okay? So, how well did you answer the questions that I present here? That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm going to grade you on. How well did you forecast future demand? How well did you translate those forecasts into machine requirements? How well did you decide when to purchase the machines that you purchased? How well did you decide how many sets of kits to order with each batch? How well did you decide to the reorder point for the kits? That is what I'm going to grade your group pre-simulation write-ups and post-simulation write-ups on. How well can you answer those questions? How well can you analyze those questions? And yes, I keep on going back to that word, analysis, because that is what I am looking for. Now, I'll also be grading on your writing skill. So to give you an idea as to the writing skill, keep in mind I am not an English professor, okay? I am not an English professor. So I will not look through this to see if there are minute problems with regard to spelling and grammar. However, if I notice spelling or grammar errors as I read the paper, I will deduct points in the following manner. The first spelling or grammar error, no points off. So, the occasional error happens. But each subsequent spelling or grammar error are 10 points off for each error. So why do I do this? Suppose you are turning in a resume to a potential employer. Usually they'll overlook one spelling or grammar error. Beyond that, the spelling or grammar errors start to reflect badly. So, first spelling or grammar error, no points off, but each subsequent one, I take 10 points off for each error, because that is how a real-world employer, how a real-world client, how a real-world customer will view your work. Okay? Okay. So, that is what is expected with regard to the Littlefield simulation. I recommend that you log into this website and start looking at the information and start absorbing the information. After all, the first 50 days are available. So you have the first 50 days of demand. And you should be able to use that to forecast for all future demand. Okay? And that is what I expect you to do, to forecast all future demand. Because that's where things begin. Because before you can figure out how many machines you need to have some idea as to what future demand will be. So you need to forecast, then use that forecast to figure out how many machines you need and when to purchase those machines. Okay? Then you also need that forecast for future demand to see how many sets of kits to order. And more to the point, what is the reorder point for those kits? Okay? Okay. Good luck.